Welcome to the Schremp and Syvret Show, a member of the Nation Network of Podcasts and delivered by DoorDash.
Hey, Danny boy. How you doing, my friend?
Good, Schrempy. What's going on?
Not too much, but I'm pumped for this episode 6. Pumped to see you again. How has your week been? Fill me in.
Not bad. We had a big heat wave here in London. So we got some gardening in. I didn't get to do the garden party that you guys have out in Latvia, but and if you're listening, we usually film on Tuesdays. So it's usually during the working hours at Eastern Standard Time, which my kids are at daycare, and time wise, it's after hours for Schrempy. So I got the call this morning that one of my guys had a bit of a fever. So I rolled time back to the 90s and tried to get the health remedy of, chicken noodle soup and drinking ginger ale through a straw. So hopefully my 2-year-old is calm while we're filming, but if we get interrupted, then so be it. Sometimes life happens, but it's all good. You'd understand, obviously, right?
Oh yeah. Still come home every week with something new. So it's been an adventure, this parenting thing. And it's amazing. It's amazing. Actually, you do so much for your kid, and also the part of it of watching what your kid goes through. It's crazy. We talked about it last week, but going to preschool or every week she comes back with a new bug. And then in this time it's been crazy because you don't know what to overreact to or underreact to, like fevers, like immediately, like, whoa, the COVID or whatever. So it's been wild this whole year. As soon as she's gotten sick, it kind of throws up my radar, at least makes me a little bit paranoid.
Yeah. Well, I think I did pretty good job. I mean, he's got a full stomach. He's watching some cartoons. He's pretty soon, I think he's going to be sleeping, or maybe he already is. So hopefully it buys me enough time to film this, but if not, he might be a star on our show. But your week, and I saw you posted something about what the hell's Astromets, or what is this NFT thing? What's Astromets? Is that you? That's a sick name.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. OG Astromets is my tag name, and it's part of my project, Space Force Hockey. So it's a really cool project. It's an online education development project, and it's attached to the NFT space. So it's really cool. I'm excited about it. Actually, it's what basically we're doing, walking from A to Z, teaching the hockey players how to shoot, how to pass, college admission stuff, nutrition, off-ice workout. We're really bundling it all into one community. And then when wrapping it into an NFT, it makes it so that project, that's your door ticket to the project. You buy the NFT, and that gets you in and gets you access to the community, gets you access to all this content. And when I say community, with the NFT space, it's attached to the Discord, and that Discord is it's like an open community, but you got to have a door ticket to get in there. So it's pretty cool. And you come in there and people can be interactive with me. I'm going to get other pro players and ex and current players in there to be doing some stuff, building some content. The content's going to be more in the sense of like how to, you think of a guy that's a half wall guy, a top end defenseman walking the line, how they see the game. So it's an educational project for the players, and I'm super excited to be involved with it and kind of leading the way right now. So we're off the ground and running.
So NFT, it help me understand that a little bit more, and obviously our viewers that don't understand. But is that like a membership that's capped, or what is an NFT? Like, how can anyone buy this, or how can you be a part of that community?
Yeah, we've made it really simple in the sense that it's just like signing up for a membership, and then we have people in the back end that walk you through on how to set up a wallet, a crypto wallet. And there's different things. That's for me, this is going to be a project and making sure educating people that it's not like your normal NFT thing. Like right now, NFTs are such a buzz, and people are trying to buy an NFT for 30 cents and sell it for $300,000. And it's wild, right? Like you see this stuff every day on social media. And then also like carpet rug ones, where the value in this NFT is in the development. So your kid comes in, you buy this for your kid, the kid comes in, gets access to that content. They start developing in our community. And let's say they stay in there for 2 or 3 years, develop every day. They get new content on how to shoot, how to hockey IQ stuff, all again, development, right? In 2 years, the value of the NFT is that your kid developed, and then you may be able to resell that NFT for, hopefully one day it's worth $1,000. But it's not going to be one of those, buy it today and then tomorrow you can flip it around for $10 million. So the whole, the utility of the NFT is that being inside that community, the new people that I bring in through my network to help the players develop, give them the information, teach them what they know about the game. That's really where the value of this NFT is. What makes it different than, doing a subscription model is exactly that. You can resell this ticket. You buy that ticket, you hold it, it's in your crypto wallet. And with the value you feel you've got out of it, at the end of it, you could sell that ticket again. You could resell that seat. So it's new and exciting, and it's just, again, something different. And I've always been a little bit futuristic in my things, so I might be a little ahead of the curve here, but that's the point of it. I got asked to do an NFT, and the NFT, with the way that they were going at the time, was players are like minting their moment. So you think about that. Do you have a moment that's valuable, like super valuable? Do I, is what I ask myself. No, I don't.
What about the kayak after the goal celly? I saw that posted.
Ryan McDonald might have bought that. He wasn't too happy. I loved, that moment was unbelievable because, Mac was, obviously we were teammates with him, and Mac had my number. Like, we practiced with him every day for 2 years, played with him every day for 2 years. He knew me like the back of his hand. So that whole game, you can hear it in that video when the announcer says, and Schremp won't officially record a point, but he does score in the shootout. I had like 13 shots in that game. And there was 2 times where I came out from behind the net. And I used to have this move where I'd come out from, if we were behind the net facing the blue line, I'd come out to the left. So I'm out on my forehand, and I'd come around, and most goalies would overplay, and I can go short side shelf. Wouldn't even have to look. I just knew it was there. I did it on Mac twice in that game. As I took the shot and I let it release, he was on his back, had 2 pads stacked. So imagine that. He was on the ice, had his 2 pads stacked. So his pads were facing me, and he was yelling from the ice, "F you, Bob." Because he was already there with his pad stacked like 3 seconds before I let the shot go. He knew exactly what I was going to do. So long story long, but then I got that chance in that shootout, and I went bar down on him blocker side, and I got him to bite right at about the hash marks. I threw a fake, and you can see his glove hand. Yeah. Yeah, it bit hard. So after I put that in blocker, I had to do a legendary celly on him. And anyway,
so this was a regular season game then, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Did you guys run into these guys again, like, or in the playoffs or anything, or no?
No, we didn't run into them that year in playoffs. The next
is that like,
season we didn't run
I
into
feel like that would be some bulletin board material.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Right. Like, I think it wouldn't surprise me if they had like a kayaker or something.
They're hilarious.
Let's
throwing paddles at me on the ice.
Oh man. But no, so that would be your minted moment potentially, right?
Potentially, I didn't really think that was, I didn't have that. Like Gretzky has the game, the record breaking everything. There's certain guys in the game that have these valuable moments that might, bring some value. So what I thought would be valuable was this, making a community where every day I'm uploading content and teaching them what I know about the game, and then bringing people of my friends that know a lot about the game, continuously adding that value in being inside that community. So the NFT space, it's really, I don't want to get too caught up in it because it's not about that. It's just more of a door ticket, and it's something different than doing, again, like a subscription model. At the end of that subscription, it's over. So this makes it cool where you could resell that seat, and there's only a limited amount of seats. So that's what makes it exciting. And for me to build this content and kind of be able to spread my knowledge this way it's fun for me, because you can't be everywhere at once, right? And hopefully I can pass along all the things I collected in the game and get a chance to play with guys. You name the guys, Bolts, go down the list, collect so much information. How do you give that out?
No, what's the what would be like the age range that you're targeting for a player? Like is there a certain caliber or age bracket that players would be more so inclined to be a part of it?
Really not really. It's anywhere from youth. I go from ABCs of shooting, ABCs of passing. Then there's going to be obviously a little bit of a higher, level of understanding of the game. You start talking hockey IQ stuff and attack and triangle. So it's going to be value packed for all sorts, from the beginner all the way up to the pro. Putting the information in there where there's different folders of information, different folders of content where you can click on and open that up, and it shows you again, what you're looking for and what kind of information you want to watch and videos you want to see. So maybe at 7 you're ready for it. You never know. But and that's the thing. I work with some young kids too. I got a UL player, Christopher Pinko. I've mentioned before. I think he's a stud. Like he does things that at a high level. He's 11 years old. So having the ability to give him information and let him see some high level stuff helps him advance a little bit faster. But that doesn't mean that everybody has to go that level. You know what I mean? They kind of go at your own pace. So it's pretty unique, and I'm really excited about it. I appreciate you bringing it up.
How did you come about this name? I asked, does OG stand for something? Like Astromit's is pretty sick.
Original gangster, baby. I'm the original, kind of with the tricks and stuff that are out now and that sort of thing. You were there for it. So, and some part of it, I was starting that stuff when I was 11 years old. I really playing lacrosse. I didn't do the Michigan, but I was playing lacrosse with a hockey stick in different, aspects. So, I think I've been called the OG quite a few times, and I thought I'd finally kind of own it and slap it on a cool name. And Astromit's a little futuristic, a little different. And Space Force is unique in the sense it's not just, it's not just gimmicky. It's really inside that community. We're going to teach them how to, use the space, use the ice surface. And one thing for me is where I'm really passionate about is teaching players how to use the air of the ice in that space, whether it be sauce passes, whether it be playing hockey like a lacrosse stick, how to pick the puck up, how to use that space. To me, it's very dynamic and it's very different. And not many people can teach that. And I think that's my mission is to teach people how to use the air dynamic of the ice, that space. And so we put that into the name, and it's a little bit, and it also gives it kind of sort of that NFT futuristic feel to it as well. Space Force, you can play with it and have fun with it. Kids will love it. And, we got some cool names for them when they come in the community. So cosmonauts, astronauts, it's pretty cool. So it's exciting and something I've been spending a lot of time on lately. So it's exciting to get it off the ground.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. Unique. And obviously forward thinking, futuristic, I guess. Speaking of futuristic, I wanted to bring to the table the posted picture that I had of myself. That was me with the Knights and that old school chrome Easton SL with the chrome blue spray. Like, talk about futuristic, having a chrome stick. I actually got a lot of feedback from players. I had players contact me direct, like, because everyone wants to sort of talk about gear, right? Gear gurus. And one of them was Derek Nesbitt, who follows us quite frequently. So he had made a couple comments about it. And the other was Ryan O'Mara, who was an Oilers prospect with us as well. But which brought me to the topic of, remember when we were in the A and you had to use certain sticks?
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you like, so those who are listening, when we were in the minors, they had signed a deal with, was it CCM or Reebok CCM?
Reebok. It was Reebok at the time. Okay.
So everyone had to discard the sticks that they were using to use these Reeboks or CCMs, which essentially were like talk about futuristic, turning time back. Like, we might as well be having like a Victoriaville or like a wooden Hespler or something, right? Like, I think it was a little too before their time of jumping into the game, but those logs were brutal. I think it's changed now. I think I watched AHL now. The caliber of stick is up to par now. So I think they're using good quality sticks, but at the time for us, it wasn't the greatest. And just speaking about gear in general, like, I was never really a gear guru. Like, I know we would always have reps come in when you're in the NHL with gloves and everything. And I sort of just wanted protection on the glove side of things. My stick, I tried unfortunately get out of CCM as quick as I could because of the product we had in the AHL at the time. I think their product is better now. So I jumped into Bauer. The only thing that sort of was consistent for me was I couldn't get out of my Grafs. Like, I know they're heavy leather and, probably not the prettiest to look at, but for me, like, comfort and protection was the number one for me. But like, I know you are more of a gear guru. So what do you think of gear back then to now? And what was your MO all the time?
What were you were rocking the 707's, no?
Yeah, like I like
27s.
I was 707. It was the
707. Yeah,
it was almost like the running shoe boot with over the ankles. There were little flaps, leather flaps that would come in to tie up. But what it gave was a lot more ankle mobility. So I as bad as it sounds, like I skated. I used a lot of ankle push in my skating. I think nowadays the boots are so like ski boot-esque that you don't really get as much ankle drive or like flexion, I guess, dorsiflexion. But for me, I couldn't get out of that. I tried to jump into the like Bowers, which were, I think at the time, vectors or something like that. Vapors. And I just couldn't. They were lighter for sure, but I was just so accustomed to having that ankle mobility when I played that I couldn't get into it. I still wear them. Like I still wear Graf 707's. I don't know if they make them anymore, but I'm preserving them for my whole life.
I'm getting a pair whipped up right now, actually, in the Bond factory in London. So they got me a pair coming. I got the Great Whites coming back out, coming out of retirement. Yeah, I took your social media comment to heart, and I got in touch with Graf, and I said, "Hey, get those bad boys working."
You got whites coming?
I'm bringing the slippers back, baby. Dude, I remember I took a lot of slack for that back then in the days too. I remember in our year in Springfield, we had our coach at the time. Don't need to bring him up, his name wise. I was in the trainer's office getting my skates warmed up, and Ralphie was the trainer at the time. Ralphie was helping me out, and the goat. And the coach comes in and goes, "Hey, you're not wearing those." And I started laughing. That was a joke. It's kind of like, He's like, "No, I'm not joking. You're not wearing those." He goes, "Ralphie, put those in the box, send them back." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "You're not wearing white skates on my team." He's like, "Those are going back. You're not wearing them." He made him send them back. The Great Whites, man. That's when I change over. You see some Oilers. I saw a card the other day, a hockey card, an Oilers jersey, and I had the black boots on. It just wasn't the same, man.
It wasn't Rob.
It wasn't me at
all. You were Robert with black skates, and you're Schrempy.
Schrempy with white. Oh man, it took my identity away. But no, I was big into gear and like style and feel were huge, obviously components for me. But I rocked the great white Grafs for a long time. And those super light twigs were like the best sticks. Because even for me, the first Synergy that came out, it was more guys got obsessed with it because it was new and it was a one piece. But I remember picking it up and I hated it. I actually didn't like the first Synergies that came out. I liked the Z Bubble with a Focus Flex blade. It had a sick, man, the feel on that thing was unbelievable. I had a Z Bubble too. Yeah, once I went to the one piece, I lost feel. I lost the feel in my shot. Like for me, it's that last piece of contact on the whip, and it just with the one piece, I lost it. But the super lights were the best model for sure. They were really good. We were kind of spoiled a little bit in London though. We got a lot of attention there. Obviously, we're a hot market. I'm not so sure that other junior players would have had what we had as far as like reps in the room, like basically handing out candy. Remember Scott Shepard every week used to come out with like 10 sticks from a different company. He'd use one or two of them and the rest of them would be, I don't know where they went. I can't say exactly where they went, but they weren't in the room anymore. But yeah, we were a little bit fortunate in London because we were in such a hot market. People wanted us in their gear. I think we still had the CCM. We had the Reebok deal as far as gloves, helmets, and like the pant shells had to be that, but we were fortunate. We got to use whatever twigs we wanted. And that was the weirdest thing, honestly, going pro was to have that. I wouldn't say it's a right, but like, that's like you were saying,
that was hard, man.
I wasn't too particular, but your stick is your weapon. Like that's your feel. Like that's everything on the ice. You can get accustomed to a helmet. Who cares? Gloves, they'll break in eventually. But when it comes to twigs, man, if they're not performing the way that you have dialed it into, those things, for me, it didn't change. I remember I didn't get to use I ended up getting to Bowers my rookie year in the minors in the A, but it took me 6 months, right? First of all, I was a rookie, and Wilkes-Barre was like, nobody's getting exempt. And so nobody got exempt. And we had like that time, like there's older guys, there's 32, 33, 37-year-old guys on your team. If they're not exempt, then like how you as a 20-year-old kid going to get exempt? That was kind of the times, right? And eventually after like 5 months of complaining, I finally went like to the team. I'm like, I can't shoot. I can't do it. Like I went down on a couple shootouts. I know exactly where I'm shooting, 13 inches over the pad. I'm going to shoot it 13 inches over the pad. The blade totally gives out and I dump it in the corner. Don't even hit the net on a penalty shot. And I'm kind of like, guys, like, I promise you, this is not me. Like, it's the arrow, And they're like, all right, fine. If it's that big a deal, like you got to get the approval of every guy in the team and they think if it's okay with them and the older guys that you get exempt, you can go get your own sticks, but you got to pay for them. I was like, fine. So luckily I got to use one of the exemptions, but it's a major thing, man. Like, I don't know. It's crazy. It was crazy to me that you could use whatever you want growing up, or whatever dad would pay for when you were a kid. And then in junior, the team would pay for them. And then you get the pro and they're like, nope, you're going to use this one. And they weren't coming right. This isn't like a bash on the company. Like, they were wrong. Like, I was a square toe user. I still am. The first batch came with a rounded toe. That's a huge problem for me. I also used it around rounded shaft. So the first one came with a square shaft and a round toe. Then the next one got my square toe, but the shaft was wrong. And it was also, I used 80, I think I was using 82 flexes back then. It came at like 102. So then I couldn't, all these things, all these problems, these are big problems when you start talking about shooting.
Yeah. I think they maybe prematurely at the time jumped into the game, right? Like and weren't ready for product. Yeah. Which unfortunately there were some teams in the A that didn't go with that exemption. Like, I remember Chicago Wolves, I think at the time, were like, no, we're going to do, and these guys are obviously out like just ripping they win. And it's like, it's because of the sticks, obviously, but it was difficult.
They had Hadar, Krog. They were stacked too.
But they were good. They were good.
Days. They were really good.
But they also had the advantage of having better arrows, right? Or weapons, hilarious. I guess. But yeah, no. And so back to the gear thing, like, I was never really big into it. Are there any guys that you remember that you had made mention to Shep, but like anyone in the NHL? I remember the weirdest thing I thought was Brian Boucher used to drench his gear before he went out. Like, he had one of these like cleaner solution bottles just full of water, and he would just soak his gear. Like it'd be soaking wet by the time but he liked having that, like, broken in moist feel versus the, sweat sort of dried out type gear, stiff gear. But and that guy started doing it. Like, I think Simon Gagne started to, this is cool. And it turned into be a bit of a fad. Right. But that was one of the ones where I thought that was interesting. Where
it's funny you say that. I played with Bush in Zug. You're talking about the goal. Yeah. Brian Bush. Yeah. And the thing was, for him, he needed a fan in between periods.
He sweats
kind of like you sweat so much. Right. And it was hilarious. Like, there was a language barrier between the trainer and him, and he couldn't get his fan. And so Bush brought his own fan in. And I remember the first game we were there, and Bush set up his fan because he couldn't get Vibey to get the fan going. He couldn't communicate with him. So he brought his own stuff and he set it up, and he went to go do his stuff, whatever he had going on. And Vibey took the fan away. And then there was like this huge altercation between peers. Not a huge, but like back and forth. And neither one of them understood each other. And it was like, what the hell's going on? And then Josh Holden had to get the middle of it and like kind of bring it up. But I just remember that's funny you say that, because I remember after periods, he would take his boot off and be like, look, and it would like pour out like a puddle. I was like, holy crap. Like, that's bananas how much he would be sweating. But that's funny. It's funny you bring that up. That's a great memory. Vibey and Bush going at it. The trainer, like, sometimes you got to shake your head. You're like, man, this guy played in this show for like how long? Like, he wants a fan. Like, don't touch his stuff. Don't touch his shit, man. Like, it was unbelievable. But Bush was an awesome guy. He wasn't around long in the zoo, but he was a really good dude.
Yeah, he was good. I got along really well with him. I think he's one of the better color guys, or in between the benches commentators. I know he was in Canada with us here for a bit, and I think he jumped over to whether it be NBC or TNT. I don't really see him as much anymore, but I always thought he gave good insight, spoke very well, and had a lot of good stories. The other thing is guys with stories. I made mention earlier. Derek Nesbitt plays in the ECHL. I played with him in St. Louis's farm system in Peoria, and we were actually coached by Jared Bednar, so who's in the finals now with Colorado. But he was a guy that could just remember everything. Like, I still keep in contact with him, and I'll mention a player's name and he'll have some story with it. Like, so we'll eventually have to get him on our show once we start getting guests. I know we have a bit of a lineup of guys that are waiting to come on. So, and I guess if anyone's listening and want us to try to get someone specifically, please reach out to us on our social media, and we'll accommodate as best we can. But when we were in Peoria, Illinois, there's not much to do in the city, and I had a pretty good apartment. So, and I lived by myself, so we would our gatherings, get-togethers, we would always sort of come over to my house, right, or my condo, and have some drinks, play cards, or whatever. And we got into this. Bring it back to wrestling. We got into this. I didn't realize at the time, but once we played together, I realized that he was like a diehard wrestling fan too, right? And to a point where he had the DVDs of all the Royal Rumbles, like from, I don't know how he got them all, but there was like from the 80s, he'd have all these Royal Rumbles. So what our parties ended up being, like I said, there wasn't a lot to do in Peoria, Illinois, but what our team parties would be guys would come in and they would just pick a number 1 to 30, and someone had whatever. If you had number 6 as the entrance, and then we'd watch, the 1992 Royal Rumble, and as the entrants come in, that's the guy you had, right? So everyone would put $5 in, and you're watching number 4 goes on and they're wrestling, and then a minute later number 5 comes out, a minute later number 6 come out, and it's like, this is my guy, and it's like Doink the Clown or something, and you're like, oh, I'm for sure losing this, right? But it got to be pretty fun because you'd be so invested in your one guy when there's all of them in the ring, like trying to toss each other out, but you'd be so invested in that one guy, and then eventually, obviously, I never really won it, but it was pretty funny and fun at the time. Looking back, it's sort of like, I couldn't believe we actually did that, but there wasn't a lot to do there. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm like, how the hell? So when we do have him on, I got to ask him, how the hell you have all the DVDs of all the Royal Rumbles?
That's unbelievable.
And he could, and he's one of those guys that you could be like, oh yeah, 1982 Royal Rumble, and he'd be like, oh yeah, I think Hulk Hogan tossed out, like, and I'm like, oh yeah, he won. I don't know. I'm a wrestling fan. I wasn't like my memory wasn't the greatest, but he's the same when it comes to hockey too. Like you could say a player and he'd be like, oh yeah, he was a left-hand shot, used I think a Drury pattern when he played in Wilkes-Barre, or and I'm like, holy cow. But we'll eventually have to get him on because he's a good guy to talk stories with. But
it'd be awesome. I don't know him that well, but I know that last year had a big mile mark for him at 1,000 games. I remember did through a big shindig for him down in Atlanta. So he's been grinding pretty hard, playing a lot of games, and I'd love to hear some of these stories. I got to hear about this Peoria time. It'd be interesting.
We had a good team. Like we had Patty O'Sullivan got traded to us. We had TJ Hensick, who was obviously a really big point producer. I think he played on your World Junior team. He's a year older than you, or you played
85, on
his World Junior team, vice versa, whatever. But he's still playing in Toledo. I think they're in the finals right now in the ECHL. But these are guys that I'd like to eventually have on, because just the stories range in all capacities. But so if anyone's listening and want us to try to get someone on, like we'll venture into scouts coming on, or assistant GMs, by all means, drop some names and we'll try to get them on. I know we have a bit of a lineup. Mathat's still messaging me all the time to come on, so I think he probably will have to be our first guest. But that's my. So anyways, that was not to get on a tangent there, but that was my bringing it to the table is gear talk. I wasn't really a big guy in gear, but now that I know that you're getting Grafs made, I should reach out and get some 707's made again. But anyways, what you're bringing to the table?
I'd like to talk about players heading into tryouts or training camps and identifying who they are as players. I think it's, a big mistake for players when they go to these, tryouts or training camps, trying to be somebody that they're not, and it's a tricky thing. But I think it's a really important thing to understand who you are as a player, and when you go to these tryouts or these training camps, represent yourself that way, play that game. I think it's a big mistake to go in there and be a phony in some regard, or play something that you're not, play a role that you're not comfortable or you don't know how to play. If you think you're going to go in there and I'm going to score 1,000 points, but you're actually like a third line checker and a PKer. Think about that. If you do have a fluke and you lights out and you wind up putting up 100 points, whatever, you get what I'm saying, in a tryout, or you put up big points, that's going to be what's expected of you. And you don't know how to do that. It's not going to service yourself. And that's not going to be, that's not going to help you be able to be the player that you are, or, play to your best potential. So I think it's important, because this is a good time now. I think, with youth hockey tryouts, maybe have just passed or coming up, but I know there's a lot of USHL training camps that are coming up, main camps that are coming up. So that kind of audience that would be listening to this, that's, going into that, I think it's really important. And when you're watching these NHL playoffs and these really important games that are happening right now, they're packed full of information of types of players. I think every team needs a certain this, every team needs a certain that. But I think the mistake is, again, every player wants to be McKinnon. Every player wants to be Makar. If that's not your identity, again, try not to go into these things and pretend that's what you are. It's not to say that you can't practice and get to that level eventually, but if it's not, again, what I talked about, what I brought it into the table is identifying who you are as a player. And that means something. It's obviously a little bit different when you're talking about 10-year-old Tommy or 10-year-old Sally. That's a little bit different. But when you're like a 15 to 17-year-old kid heading to these important things, identifying what type of player you are and producing that at these tryouts. And Danny, you can speak to this as well. You just got done with tryouts not too long ago. And what would you say as far as coming from a coach's perspective, and maybe on how to helping them identify who they are for themselves, and then what you think about as a coach?
Yeah, you're right. We just selected our team. I coached the London Knights under 16 team. So the kids that are due to be drafted in the OHL this year. But it's interesting because I almost question if the players watch enough hockey. Like, I know growing up, we watched a lot of hockey, and with, everyone having phones, social media, there's all kinds of other distractions. But I think if you're watching games, you can sort of identify with a player. Like for me, I used to love watching Pavel Bure. They were playing in Vancouver, which is 3 hours time change and later for me. And so after dinner or after my own game, I'd come home and I'd watch, the first period or two of the Vancouver game at 10:30. And then in the morning, I'd wake up and watch the highlights of how it ended, right? But Pavel Bure was like my favorite player. Really offensive, goal scoring, dynamic forward. And I was a D my whole life. I played D from as soon as I could skate, right? But that was my favorite player. But I identified myself to be more like a Brian Leach or a Ray Bourque type D, where he distributes a puck and jumps in every once in a while and like plays a good, strong defensive game. Like that would be a guy that I watch and be like, I want to be like Brian Leach. Like, this is the style of play that I want to be. And I almost wonder if players don't really watch hockey as much or have as much knowledge of the rosters to identify of which guy you want to be like, or who you think you're going to be like. Because I think if I could poll players and ask sort of like who their favorite player is, you're going to see a lot of McKinnon, McDavid, Makars. And then if I said, okay, which player do you think you play like? You're probably going to see the same answer, which, to your point, I don't think when you're a coach trying to select a team, there's all different types of players and personalities that you need in a team to be successful, right? You can't have a full roster up front of McKinnons and a full roster on the back end of Makar. For one, they're just not available. And two, there's different roles that need to be played. Like, you look at Colorado now, and you have Helm, I think on the fourth line, very serviceable, defensive-minded killer. I think Cogliano, very similar. You have Kadri, who can put up offense like he did this year, but his MO is more of a second-line center who's hard to play against, like kills penalties, like serviceable in all areas. But I'm with you on that as far as identifying yourself as a player. And when you get to training camp, like at least for me, when our training camp, I'm not keeping stats. Like, I don't care if a guy has 5 goals in the training camp tryout. Like, if he stands out to me because he's scoring, okay, good. I'm not at the end of the game looking, going, this guy had five goals, I'm going to take him. Obviously, if you're scoring 5 goals, you're doing something, right? But points, I think, at the end of it aren't the end all be all. Like, as clear cut, you can see who are your elite offensive players. And then after that, you're looking for players who can support the puck, are defensively responsible. I'm not saying I don't want a player who's offensive. That's not what I'm saying by any means. But in the season, you're probably not going to be put in a position to be the half-wall guy, because we already have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of them already. and that's sort of their skill set. That's where they're elite at. But what I'm looking for is maybe someone who's maybe a little more, grittier or determined in the defensive zone, or is more physical or more responsible or supports the puck better, or someone that I can put throughout the lineup. Like they can play in a checking position role. They can also play as a up and down the wing puck hound type player. Like there's all different variations of the type of player that you need to create a team. And I think you're right in saying that a lot of players come in and think, oh, I got to score to get noticed. Like, sure, maybe some coaches would look at it. And I think that that's poor judgment on the coach's side. If you're just taking players who are completely all offensive, you're going to find players that fit certain roles for you. And I think if you are a player who is hardworking and physical and determined, supports the puck well, defensive minded, or maybe not as offensive, don't try to go out and be Wayne Gretzky in tryouts. Like you're going to try to make yourself look better. And in doing so, like you said, it's uncharacteristic, and you may be forcing plays. Whereas if I looked at it as a defenseman that goes back and grabs the puck and looks up, if there's an option there, I want the puck in the forward's hands, distribute the puck to the forward, right? Don't check off, Rob Schremp on the wing to look for a center guy. Oh, now, and I'm like, oh, where's my right winger? Is he stretched back? Nope, not there. Now I'm going to go back to Rob Schremp, and that's closed off. And now I just got the puck picked off, or I got stripped just by trying to forcefully make a really good play, when just be natural and make the simple play. Because the game is all about mistakes. So the limited number of mistakes that you make, the better in hockey, right? Like every goal is pretty much generated from some sort of mishap or a mistake. And I just feel like that sometimes players will go into camp thinking they have to do more or be something they're not, or be ultra offensive or productive. No, if you're a defensive minded centerman, or you're a centerman that isn't as offensive, win draws, make it hard on other players to play against. If you're a D-man, finish your check, make sure you put the guy on his back, like in the corner, jump up you don't have to be, you don't have to be McCarr or McKinnon. And I just think you're right. I think going into the camp, you just have to know what type of player you are. And maybe that's the starting point, is some players don't grasp or understand what type of player they truly are.
Yeah, I think that's kind of nail on the head. Really identify who you are as a player and be realistic. Identify who you are. And I think now it's a lot easier at the younger ages. We have video that is very accessible. It used to be like it wasn't accessible. Only pro teams did. I mean, now you have all these video services as far as video cameras in the rink, videotaping the games. It's such a good resource. So there's no longer. I think it used to be back in the days you'd have to rely on maybe somebody's evaluation to help you identify who you were as a player. What they would tell you is what you would have to believe in some regard. But again, now in today's era, you have so much information, so much access to your own film. I think that's one way also to watch yourself, use that. If you really want to be serious about hockey, I think it's important. Why would you not? Why would you not use that? Seeing yourself play is huge. Would you agree, Danny?
Yeah.
Watching yourself, seeing yourself in the space, because you have your emotions, you have your thoughts, you have all that during the game. And sometimes you get fired up at a teammate or fired up at a situation, and then you rewatch it. You're like, oh man, that was actually me. And that's powerful. It helps you understand the situations. It helps you learn about yourself, helps you identify yourself. I see players that think they're super sweet with the puck, and you watch it on video, man, they're chopping snakes. That thing's square by the time they're done with it. You're not smooth. You're not Patrick Kane. So you might want to try, identify with somebody else. I think I saw something the other day on social media. There was a player in the draft meetings and said that he was most like a combination of, I think it was Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews, something along those lines. And the player at the conversation was 1.60 games. So I think that's maybe a misidentification a little bit. Anyhow, not to go off on a tangent, but going into your tryouts, going into your camps, guys, I think it's again super important to have a realistic understanding of what you are as a player, who you are as a player, and going and being that, because that's the role you want to fill when you get there. And that's to say that you if you want to be offensive, if you want to be that guy, It doesn't turn on overnight, and it doesn't happen just because you want it. It's going to take effort. It's going to take time. It's going to take investment and practice if you want to be that elite, high-level guy. But what I'll say with that is, you want to be the point-producing guy. Again, that takes a lot of studying, a lot of reps, a lot of, practice. It's very Captain Obvious to say that, but to be able to repeat every single night being a point creator, point producer takes so much. It's very tough to do. It's not easy. Just because you want to do it doesn't mean, and it doesn't happen by cheating. You see guys like, we're watching the people right now. So McKinnon's and McDavid is he's not a cheater. He works so hard getting back, and he's not always cheating on offense. That's how he creates it. He creates it through hard work, and he creates it through reading the game unbelievably. There's so much depth and information that we can learn from Connor McDavid, but I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here. But what I would say is, again, identify before you go into these things who you are as a player, and be true to that when you get there.
And I wasn't saying that if you're not an offensive guy, you have to be a grunt worker. Like, even the offensive players, like if you're going into camp and you're quote unquote an offensive guy, like if you're back checking and defending well in your D zone and eliminating play, like you're jumping up the charts for me, because I'm like, wow, this guy, for one, knows how to play the game full rounded and cares. It's not just, oh, I'm going to be the half wall guy, or the load me up in the high slot and I'll score for you. Great. But if you don't have the puck, what are you doing for me? Right. Like, so there's a lot of elements that need to be addressed in a player. And you're right on the video aspect. Like, they have iPads on the bench. Players are grabbing iPads after a shift, and come off and be like, Schrempy, I was open there. And then you grab the iPad and it's like, well, no, there's a guy on your backside. I'm like, oh, I didn't see it because I was looking through my own lens. Right now I have an over the top view, and it's easier to understand. But I just think watching hockey in general makes you a better whole rounded player. Like, I always talk, I know that he's out of the playoffs now, but I really like the Barkov kid. Like, he plays like a very strong game. He's offensive, defends well. O'Reilly, same thing. Guy who's very hard to play against. All these guys are very hard to, like, when do you see a guy that's like, oh yeah, he's easy to play against? That's why he's like, you don't see them. Like, they're all very, very hard players to play against. I think that would be the worst tag to have, is a player who's easy to play against. And coming full circle on a player who's hard to play against, I got a shirt on. I got a shirt on of P-head Corey Perry.
That's hilarious.
It's a very hard player to play against. I'm actually flying down to Tampa to watch Game 6, so I'm hopeful that they can have a good performance. And I know that he's been playing very well for them. But
hey, you better load up on that SPF 1000. Oh boy,
yeah,
hey,
I know
you don't fare so well in that sunshine, but.
I'll carry an umbrella around if I have to, but no, I just had to make sure that the shirt fit before I went down there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to heading down, catching Stanley Cup final, or actually conference final hockey. But it's in general, it's great hockey to watch right now. Like, every night, doesn't matter who's on. Like, I know Edmonton just sort of bowed out, and we have some clips about Colorado. I think they're doing some pretty unique things. That their style of play is extremely unique in my mind. I think it's almost like, not revolutionary, but the other teams are going to try to emulate their offensive prowess on their back end and the way that they cycle the puck in zone. And obviously Edmonton, looking at their ice times, they ran their horses as much as they could, right? Like, I think the second round, the Edmonton over Calgary series, I think the McDavid and Draisaitl were just on a completely different level. It's hard to keep that up all the time. They ran them pretty hard. I think they had the most ice time on the whole team, out of the whole team, throughout this series. But those are two very talented players. It was unfortunate that Edmonton couldn't get through it. It sounded unbelievable in the building, like from my couch. And obviously, having been there, you and I, at Rexall, old Rexall Center, I couldn't imagine how how loud it would have been being in there. But hopefully, I mean, with those two, I think they'll build a pretty strong nucleus or be in contention every year. So it's good for hockey. It's good for Canadians and obviously the Western crew as well.
The other thing too, Danny, is you start watching, paying attention, the other players around them. For me, I think more of Connor McDavid when I think of this, but the other players started emulating him and doing things in traffic like him, which is, I think would be the best part about playing with Connor McDavid, would to be on the ice with him every single day. And that's, for me, that's so powerful to watch somebody else, just like we're talking about, watch your own game or watch hockey in general. And it's all encompassing. Like I had this conversation. I played in a men's league tournament last weekend with a team here in Latvia. And they were asking me questions. I was like, I'm like, in between games, I'm like, do you guys realize that you guys want to know more about the game and stuff? And there's games going on right now. Do you realize not one guy's paying attention to it? We could have a beer and also watch the game. You watch the game and you watch the space, and you'll start to realize what your mistakes are by watching other people, because it's the same shape for them as it is for us when we go back out there in an hour. Same thing for the kids, the shape, and you see the patterns and you see the mistakes, and you can kind of grasp that. But to bring that in with Connor, like I start to see watching the games, you see the other guys, their skill level come up, the decisions they make in traffic with the puck. It's sick to watch because he's making everybody else better. And that's the best compliment you can give a player like that. And that's what those players do. For me, it's a little bit different. Like with a Crosby, Connor's a little bit more high end, I think. Crosby's more like does everything very good, right? Like it's close to perfect. Connor does the same in some regard, but also has that like high end level flash to it. Would you agree?
No, I agree. And I mean, the game is so fast now. I think you look at all the players who are up there in points, they all have, there's one thing in common, is they all can move. Yeah. Right. I think that the emphasis on the game right now is speed. So like it's the game and the creativity at such a high pace right now is like
puck control, speed with puck control.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Two things that are unbelievable. McKinnon's, and these guys, we keep talking about them, but they're worth talking about. We could talk to them in the face, but these are the people you want to grasp, because this is where the trends are going. And this is where it's coming. I think this is in my opinion, this is the absolute moment of the 2005 lockout. This is where the game has finally come to the forefront. What they wanted. The old game is kind of officially gone, right? Like it's fast, it's skilled, it's totally changed. And we talked about a little bit last episode. You watched how we shadowed Crosby, and like every shift there was literally like 15 penalties in it, right? Like anyways, that's 2004, 2005. I think now is where the game has finally come to where they wanted it to be. And it is very skilled. Like again, you're watching, like I watched some 12, 13-year-old kids. They are so skilled, man. Not to get too far on a tangent, there's other things that we can go along and add to that. We got to start developing hockey sense to go with that. Because now we're just doing random moves all over the place and doing jungle gym stuff and obstacle courses. But anyways, the game at the highest level right now has finally gotten to the point why they changed the rules and what they were waiting to get out of it. It's here. Like 34 points. And what was the games? How many games did the Oilers play? 16?
Yeah, close to that.
It was 16 or around there. I should know that. I should have done my homework, but still, it's around 16 or 17 games. They scored 34 points. When have we seen that?
Yeah.
Like studs are starting to score those 2.5 points a game, which that's what we were missing for a while. That like for a while there, it was like the top point guy would be like 90 points. That 90-point guy would be worth, I don't get into the money talk of it, but like that guy's worth like $9 million. Now we have it where our $10 million players are scoring 2 points a game. And that is, for me, fun. It's great to see because it's electricity. I think we can expect that nightly basis to have that. We're having playoff games now that are 9-6. Like not just one or two. There's been a bunch throughout the playoffs, like very high scoring games. I don't know. I love it. I love where the game's at. I love where it's kind of funny developed, and it makes me want to get a membership and try to come back. You know what I mean? It's never going to happen, but it makes you want to, it's just such a different game. There's so much creativity and skill. It's awesome to see.
The other thing too is like the coaching that goes on, like the innovation. We always bring it back to hockey's like an extremely fast game of chess, right? Because there's always moving parts. And I think it's hard. Obviously, majority, if not all, of the coaches in the NHL are good coaches, right? I'm not discrediting anyone on that, but it's very hard to make it through the playoffs a bad coach, right? And I just, a couple of things that I saw in Colorado, they're obviously by far the better team over Edmonton, but they did some unique things on the penalty kill. They allowed the net front presence for Edmonton to just stand in front. He was really of no threat to jump, release backdoor or below the goal line. And what Colorado did was they just identified each player and who they had. So they're always in a shooting lane. They're always within a couple stick lengths to be in a passing lane or in a shot lane. And they just allowed the goalie to have the player in front of the net. So effectively turning a 5-on-4 into pretty much a 5-on-5, right? And even on a point shot, the net front body never moved. They were trying to be in the shooting lane. And it wasn't until they sort of collected the puck to the half wall and started to attack down the half wall is when they realized, okay, that the net front presence is now an issue for us, right? And they had their high forward take away the bumper player. They had their weak side forward denying the pass through the seam. They had the strong side defenseman up on the half wall guy deterring any type of shot. And then the weak side defenseman sort of left his zone coverage, I guess, to take on the net front player, right? Effectively leaving the only guy open, the defenseman up top again, the quarterback defenseman, right? So you could dish it back up for a bomb, but then the weak side guy who's in the seam pass is already in that shooting lane, right? I just thought it was very interesting to see how they could allow the net front presence to just stand wide open in front. Like they effectively took everything away from the middle. The middle of the ice was nothing, like no one could get anything in the middle of the ice, and they kept pucks to the outside. I think there was a lot of times that there were some poor angle shots from the outside, and if they were from up top, they were either blocked, or if the shot did come through to the net, the goalie obviously responsible for the rebound. But if there was a rebound, you now had the two defensemen converging on that net front player. So effectively they negated, I guess, the power play a little bit. Like Edmonton would have a lot of in zone time and movement and shots and opportunities, but not grade A opportunities, right? Like Colorado did a really, really good job of taking away the two biggest threats, I think, on that team. The two half walls would be McDavid and Draisaitl, and effectively allowing the goalie to just take the net front forward and be like, that's your guy. And when you think about it in theory, it's actually pretty smart, because the goalies are so big now, they can just look up and around and over the one guy, right? Where it comes into trouble, obviously, is if that net front guy gets a stick on it, right? But because he's so close to the goalie, I'm not a goalie expert, but I'm assuming that guy, the goalie, will challenge out as far as he can to the backside of that net front presence, so that if there is any type of deflection, it doesn't have much time or range to move, and the goalie effectively could stop it, right? And then your net front D are now closing in on, once the puck pretty much comes below the top of the circles, then they start thinking, okay, that net front guy is now a threat. But if you're on the half wall up top, out high, they pretty much just left him wide open. So it'd be interesting to see, and I think that was a change that occurred throughout the series. But it'll be interesting to see what Colorado does in the finals, because the net front presence of the opposition is a lot more mobile. They're not just your token guy that stands in front and supposed to screen. They jump back door, they jump strong side below the goal line. They're constantly a threat to be a passing option and take the puck to the net. So it'll be interesting to see what Colorado does sort of in that chess game of special teams to try to negate any real grade A scoring chances on the power play in the finals.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's watching the other series. There's a ton of seam passes, and it's a big problem, I think, for Tampa right now, and that's the big issue right now where they're getting in trouble. Is there's a lot of seam passes. Panarin's very patient with that puck on the one side, and they have different options. They got Fox up top for 1T or cross seam over to Zibanejad, and then what you're talking about is basically specifically what you're talking about. The net front guy, Kreider, is very active in where he stands, a lot of back doors. So it makes it the difference in the power play side of it is, like you said, the Edmonton's guy was standing kind of square. And we go back to last week's categories of the zone, it's coming down category 2 on each side. So it's predictability for the goaltender. And also what happens with a very stagnant net front guy is that guy actually takes away net. Mm-hmm. When that guy's not moving, not flash screening, he's not moving around there, he's standing in one spot, he's actually taking net away. And I'm saying that from a shooter's perspective. When I'm coming down that, like, that's what I would ask my net front guy. I'm like, hey man, I don't need you to stand there and take a beating or stand there at all. What I need is you either go back door so he has to worry about something, or I need you to flash his eyes right before I shoot. That's it. Because that's what happens. If they stand stagnant there, you're taking away half my net. I appreciate you standing there. It takes a lot of balls to stand there. But if we think about this objectively, you're standing in one spot. The goalie only has to worry about the other side of you. So it makes it a lot tougher when that guy moves around again, because if he slides back door, that goalie's like, oh man, you put yourself in that, in that situation. You look through the goalie's perspective. Think about if you were the goalie, what would you be thinking? The guy, you watch him go back door, he's going there, and you got a guy walking right down, and a guy like, Draisaitl or McDavid, those are pretty good players. But now you have to think about which one to take, which one's more deadly. To watch the shot or watch the back door. Gives you things to think about, and it makes it tougher for the goalie. And to your point, exactly, if that guy stands firm and where he's at, the goalie comes out to the top of his paint. There's not many places that puck can go. There's a predictability in that shot tip or where that tip's going to come. So you'd have to start as a shooter. You just have to start shooting almost 3 feet wide on either side to get a big change of trajectory on that tip, right? Which is, it's tough to do in the power play. You're walking down like and thinking, shoot this 3 feet wide so I can get a tip. It's probably not going to happen.
I think the hardest thing to defend, like, 5-on-4 shorthanded or even at even strength, is unpredictability. And I think if you know what the defending or the opposing team is going to do, it's easier to defend. So it will be interesting to see what Colorado does, because like you said, New York has Kreider in front. Tampa has Cirelli, Killorn, Perry that sort of flex out all around the net front, and they creep back door, they creep strong side. They make the goalie aware of sort of where they are, and like you said, it makes the goalie have to think differently instead of just being able to challenge out until he bumps into the backside of the net front guy. He's got to be, okay, I got to be loaded on this inside step in case that goes ripped back door or something like that. And then to your point too, on the flashing of the eyes, like when bodies are sort of going through the goalie's eyes, it's like you're long blinking all the time. It's hard to see the puck. And obviously if they just have a net front presence that's sort of stationary, static, it's easier just to sort of look around the shoulder one way or the other, right? But if there's movement, it's hard you don't know if you might catch them. When I think there's a goal Makar scored against Edmonton where he just wristed one on, and Smith had no idea where the puck went, because as he was
side,
as he was about to shoot, he got sort of, like you said, flash screened, and then the puck's already in the air. He never saw the shot or release, so he doesn't know trajectory of the puck. He knew obviously it was coming over that area, so he just sort of threw out his glove like, hopefully this hits it. But even at even strength, I think unpredictability in zone, there's a lot of creativity going on in all the teams, how they play with the puck. They're activating their D. They're a lot more creative, and I think that's very hard to defend when you don't really know what they're doing. They have a set sort of system probably, but they allow their players to be creative within the system, and that's the hardest to defend, right? When they're allowed to play together and be creative and feed off one another, it's very, very hard to defend. And it's just been great hockey to watch. And I look forward to obviously the rest of the conference finals, and hopefully some good games live down in Tampa, and then a good Stanley Cup finals.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's one thing that I've been noticing I've talked about it a couple episodes ago, maybe, and how the playoffs turn into the cycle game. And it's kind of been this series was a combination of both, because there's so much firepower on both sides. We had the car jumping up in the rush. McDavid, Draisaitl leading really every single turnover turned into a transition the other way. So there was a lot of track meet still in this series. But what I found was in Edmonton's game, I felt like there was a lot of really good cycle plays. And I feel like this is a little bit of a lost art in the NHL and in hockey in general. And what I think is big for this is for players, for athletes, you know, in my opinion, is being multi-sport athletes. And something along the lines where I'm going with this is for hockey is kids that play basketball and understanding picks and screens and setting your player up. You know, if you watch Steph Curry and the Golden State team, the way that they they set up their 3-point guys, the picks that they move, the moving screens, and it's all about setting up that guy and buying him time and space. Being able to understand that theory and that chess match of a different sport and then bringing it to hockey. I knew for myself growing up, we worked a ton on cycling and setting picks and setting a pick so that guy, your teammate, can get into a golden opportunity. And for me, that's what I had some clips today, was just that and highlighting that with Edmonton in the last series. I thought they did a great job of it, whether it be power play or whether it be 5-on-5, and Draisaitl is really good at it. And you can watch a few of these clips where Draisaitl sets a pick, he buys McDavid time, he buys him a second or two of time, and that second or two of time winds up coming back to him. McDavid gets a second. That guy that Draisaitl picks, now he's a second late to McDavid. As soon as that guy comes a second late, McDavid picks that guy apart. Because if you can buy, you know, in general, if you can buy any teammate 1 or 2 seconds in a play, that's huge. When you can buy Connor McDavid a second or two in a play, it's, you know, astronomical. So just highlighting these picks and the way that, you know, guys are setting up the next play, I think, again, is a lost art. And for players out there now, it's, you know, there's a sense of it too, where you got to be a little bit careful, where you can't just literally blatantly go and skid into a guy and like knock him down. You don't have the puck, he doesn't have the puck, that's interference. But having that mindset of like, okay, how can I help my teammate get a little free here? Where can I stand to help him get open? I think that's important. And watching a lot of hockey, I think just seeing, I don't see that a lot. You know, I don't see that a lot in the game. So that's where I want to go with some clips today and just highlight that. You can see, again, Draisaitl sets a couple picks for McDavid. The first one, it's a give and go. He sets the pick for McDavid. McDavid walks up the corner. The guy that Draisaitl picks now chases McDavid. McDavid makes a nice play, makes it down to Draisaitl on the goal line, backdoor goal. You know, a lot of this series from Colorado and Edmonton had a little bit of the track meet, the normal stuff. I mentioned a couple episodes back about, you know, usually the regular season is all track meet and not a lot of cycling. I felt like Edmonton did a really good job of doing both. On turnovers, they you know, got the puck transition very well. But what I liked about their game was they added both. They had some great cycle plays here. And a guy that I liked a lot in this series, obviously he did a hell of a job with points wise, but these little things I started paying attention to, like setting picks and cycling the puck. And I feel like it's a little bit of a lost art in today's game. You see one guy come out of the corner and then the F3 guy will just drive the net kind of blindly and see what happens. Again, learning from what we're watching here and watching, you know, the top end players, watch Draisaitl and how he sets picks for Connor. He buys him time, and that time that he's buying for him is huge. Like if you can set a pick and buy, you know, like a normal teammate 1 or 2 seconds, it's huge. When you can buy a guy like McDavid, like 1 or 2 seconds, think about that. It's insane.
A step. Like I'm thinking on the defensive side of things, like if I'm defending a player and all of a sudden I got to make that split second decision. Do I go this way or that way around this essential moving pick? Obviously, ideally, I would try to hope that he bumps into me and I can sort of, you know, flop a little easier for an interference play. But if it's a really good moving pick where it's not interference, I have to reroute myself. And with the speed and power of a lot of these guys, like it takes a half stride and that puck's going to be a chance opportunity for the net. And I think Draisaitl is one of the best players in the game now on sort of slowing the play down. Even though it's a fast-paced game, he really possesses and has so much poise, and his creativity, he makes all the players around him way better.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. I love the way he uses his frame when he has the puck for puck protection. And then again, on these kind of things like setting picks, buying time for his teammates, he's super smart with it, and pick and rolls. Like he's unbelievable pick and roll. He doesn't just stand there. He gets open after, and in the space that he frees up and the time that he buys, it usually winds up buying him dividends back. Again, I thought they did a great job rolling off. They made a lot of great plays coming out of the corner. And, there's even a couple of times I've seen some D in there, CC's in there setting picks. buying time and space for McDavid to create something out of the corner. And that's another thing, again, watching the trends and watching what you're seeing. If you're watching these games live, at least for me, when I see it, I'm like, how many times did I watch McDavid come out of the corners with full speed? Now that's something that would ring a bell to me. Be like, that's something I should work. That's a pattern I should work on. I should work on what that takes to come, roaring out of that corner, attacking. And I'll bring it back to last week's episode, the categories of the zone. How to come out of category 1, attack in category 2, and get these better faces of the net. What does that look like? And again, when we watch these games, you watch these live games, for me, it shows me those patterns. Like, what does that look like? Where do I need to start my speed? You know what I mean? And you see, like, McDavid's kind of always in motion. He's always moving. He's always ready to pounce. And I think that combined with your teammates reading off each other, cycling the puck, and cycling the puck doesn't mean one guy takes it up the wall and just randomly throws it down. Because I know there's that drill in practice. You've probably done it 1,000 times. I know I've done it 1,000 times. 3 guys just go and we go do. And then sometimes you get up to the point and then 3 guys go and then shoot. This is more something I'm more passionate about. It's like running these cycle drills as a coach, like 3-on-2s down low. You started in a certain position, again, where the forward comes out from behind the net. And then the other 2 players got to move around, set picks, try to get that player freed up. And you start moving on those pick and rolls and seeing what they look like live versus, again, the 3-on-0 drill where you just go in a big circle.
I think, and also if you're watching the game in zone, like a player will never follow the contour of the boards with the puck. Like, he's always going to give him some room, like between himself and the boards, to make that cutback. Because if you're just following the contour of the boards and being like, okay, now I got a cycle, I know you can't turn back the other way. So I can play you a lot differently. But if you give yourself space along the wall, it makes it harder for me to defend, because I have to respect the fact that you have speed and could roll over the top. So I have to be on the inside of you. But then also it gives yourself the ability to make a cutback. So I can't overplay you one way, because you can spin off me and take it to the net hard. I think McCarr did it in regular season not too long ago. But then talking about being unpredictable with the back end, I think that now you're seeing a lot more D be active. I think Colorado does a very, very good job, probably the best in the league, of being active. New York, maybe a close second, but even Edmonton is being active in it. And by no means are their defensemen the most mobile in the world, but like Cody Cece's running down, trying to create a pick or havoc or unpredictability, where maybe you get a winger that has to make a switch with a low centerman. And now all of a sudden the centerman's on the D, and the low winger, who traditionally isn't as good as a centerman down low, is forcefully having to play down low, right? Like, you get a small little mismatch like that, and you better believe players at this level recognize who's defending them. And if they're like, oh, I got a winger on me, like, I'm going to try to take it to the net, just not knocking winger, just in traditionally defensemen and centermen are always the low guys. So if you get someone outside of their comfort zone, like, you take advantage of it as best you can.
Yeah. And I think, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, the shape of the rink is the same for the Pee-wees as it is for the NHL guys. The nets are in the same place. So it's, again, those trends, if you can understand them when you're younger, it makes it even better, because the mistake becomes magnified. The mistake that we're talking about at this level, when you get that winger off and you get him out of position, you get him uncomfortable, it's like a window of like half a second, maybe 1 second, maybe. At the Pee-wee level, it's like a 4-second window. You know what I mean? Like, it becomes a bigger mistake. So it's about understanding these things completely. And hopefully we do a good enough job explaining them to you and what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve out of it. But watching these high level guys and pulling apart, their tendencies, breaking them down and explaining them to you. And then obviously I like this concept of Danny and I going back and forth, because it's so important. I see the game offensively, and I'm always trying to find that crack. And then Danny's very strategic defensively, understands all the nuances as well. Are you on the wall? Do you have a step? So are you 2 or 3 feet off the wall so you can cut back? Because he knows if I do cut back, and if he overcommits and I do cut back, he's burned. And now he cheated, and he not cheated, but he gambled on something, and the risk and reward was not there, because now I got the upper hand. I'm coming in. And anyways, this back and forth, I think, is beneficial. And we really want to make it, understandable for everybody. So you kind of know when you're watching this stuff, what to look for and what these players do so well. And I think there's a ton of value in that. And we're going to continue doing this and continue breaking these things down, so that everybody can understand them, and then everybody knows what they're trying to get out of those situations.
Yeah, no, I think the hardest to defend is motion, right? Again, going back to unpredictability. In zone, when players are moving all over the place, you don't have your stationary guy just in front of the net, or your stationary guy F3 high, like feed me, I'm loaded, and like that's easy to defend, right? I can be a stick length away from you, and whether I interrupt the pass, or as you're getting it, I'm back pressuring your stick, you're not even going to get the shot off. It's that constant like stirring soup motion and in zone where guys are just flowing everywhere. And I think to your videos, I think that's the best is when you're with a line, or you're accustomed with certain tendencies of a player because you've been with them for a long period of time, that you get to understand what they're, so it may be unpredictable for the defending team, but for me, if I'm on your line, I'm like, okay, he normally comes up the wall and starts to attack over the top of the circle, so I'm going to go here and just create that confusion. Or maybe I can go, maybe if I'm a defenseman and you're coming up the strong side, or I know that you're going to come up the strong side because I played with you long enough, I'm going to just jump towards the net, and I'm going to forcefully bring my winger who's covering me down towards the net and collapse, give you a lot more space to roll over the top, right? Like I think all these things are just different ways to sort of see the game, and hopefully it does translate. And sort of, I guess to your point, if someone wants us to cut down someone's a specific player, or a type of system, or a team's in zone power play breakout, whatever, by all means, like flip us a message on social media, and we'll gladly do it, because as much as we can educate the listener as possible, we're going to obviously try to do it. I have a lot of fun doing it. Rob, you're one of the best at it as well. So, I really enjoy doing that. But bringing it sort of full circle now, I'm obviously rocking my Corey Perry t-shirt. So I should be somewhat of a fan favorite in only Tampa, probably none of the other 31 buildings, but PointsBet Canada does a really good job for us helping out in our podcast, and conversely, I've been donating to them as well in ways of betting. I haven't really found a perfect way to recoup my earnings, but what is fun for me is the live betting aspect. Like I like, if a team goes down and I sort of am watching the game and I see, holy cow, the momentum shift, like the down a goal is getting all kinds of chances just not going in, then I'll throw a little bit of money on the team, and because the odds are so good, right? And the other thing with goaltending right now, at least on the eastern side, goaltending is unbelievable. So I've actually enjoyed betting on the saves aspect, where there's an over under on saves for goalie, and you can create your own line as well on it. So I've been sort of teetering around like the 25-30 save mark, because both teams create so much offense in Tampa and New York, and both goalies are unbelievable. So barring any type of injury, they're probably all going to sort of hit it. I'm sure that the line will keep inflating a little bit because they are so good, but the ability for me on their website on PointsBet is to be able to adjust the spread. I've dropped it down a little bit. Just the odds aren't the greatest for me, but I've won it every single time. So I'm probably going to keep doing the same.
You're going to keep hitting the bets on the goalies. You're betting on them.
It's fun. It's fun. Like, cause I like at the end of the day, like obviously I'm rocking my digital, 16-bit Corey Perry t-shirt. So I am deep down cheering for Tampa, but when I'm watching a game, I'm just sort of watching the shot clock. Right. And okay, they only need 3 more. He only needs to make 3 more saves and I win my bet type thing. Obviously the game within the game is fun for me. And that's why I do a lot of sort of live betting.
Well, Danny, I'm wishing you the best of luck with that. If I could give you some advice, I mean, paying attention and watching, I'd be probably betting on Panarin and Zibanejad. I like that tandem. I love the way they're finding each other right now, and I don't see a solution for that PK against those guys. They're on the PP. They're unbelievable. They're deadly. Panarin is so patient with the puck. Those 2 guys, I would be betting the points on them. And if I were to take someone from Tampa, I like Stamkos. They're really setting them up. They're teeing them up on that side. So those one-timer guys in that series, watching the last game from the power plays, those are your best bets. Those are your ponies. If I was going to be putting some bets on it, I'd be looking at those guys. But all the best of luck to you, buddy. Pulling for you. Bring in the big bucks, and let's meet somewhere down in Cabo.
Thanks, Schrempy. I hopefully, obviously, deep down that Tampa wins, because I'm obviously going to be going down to watch our good buddy in Corey Perry. But it was good, obviously, catching up again, talking hockey. I really enjoyed listening to your NFT project. I really love the handle of OG Astro Myths.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, buddy. And again, if anyone wants us to break down any clip, any team, if you're a fan who wants to see sort of Rob's vision through whatever your offensive team's tactics are, or myself breaking down something, by all means, hit us up on social media at Rob Schremp, at Danny Syvret, or at the Schremp and Syvret Show. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Schremp and Syvret Show. Don't forget to subscribe to the Nation Network YouTube channel to watch all of our video breakdowns.